I know I'm 15 minutes late. So let's call this evening's meeting to order at this point. As a preliminary matter, I need to go through the our script regarding the fact that we're meeting remotely. So, as a preliminary matter, this is Bill McCusker, Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So, members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. So we'll start with Ms. DeRosiers.
Yes.
Ms. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans.
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
And then Ms. Biswas.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it at this point that we need to go through. No other staff or anything like that. So, well, Ms. Koshavos.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And as far as anticipated speakers, Ms. Kennedy, I think you're you for our first case. Can you hear us?
I can, yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And then we'll deal with Prentice Place later. All right, so introduction to remote meeting. This open meeting of the Grafton Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current, or maybe its former state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted to the town's website at www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not... Hello? Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment for the public hearing portion only. For this meeting, the Grafton Zoning Board of Appeals is convening by video conference via Zoom and by TV with dial-in access. Is that correct, Katrina? We are on TV and there's dial-in access?
We are on TV. Yeah, they've scrolling on the bottom of the access is the Zoom, all the Zoom information, so they can dial in via that.
Perfect. Okay, please note this meeting is being recorded. Some attendees are participating via video conference, actually all of us. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast will be captured by the recording of this meeting. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We're turning our attention to the first item on the agenda. Before we do, let me just state some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. Chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will allow ZBA members to comment. 4 items with public comment, so that's our public hearing at the beginning. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment by acknowledging public comment questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board and/or applicant responses. For public comment to request acknowledgement to speak, please use the chat feature in Zoom, or I guess they call in, correct, Katrina? And the AV staff will coordinate the call-ins. And we'll read any real-time comments, questions during the public hearing that have been submitted to the chat feature. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Okay, now that we're through with that, need to find a legal notice or the agenda. Okay, so our first order of business is case number 874, 331 Providence Road, seeking a special permit for an accessory apartment. At this time, I'd ask the clerk to read, at this time I ask the board to introduce themselves. Do I normally do that on these? Or I've already gone through it? No, I don't normally do that because we just went through that. So this time I'd ask the clerk to read the petition.
The Grafton Board of Appeals has received a petition from Tracy Kenny for 331 Providence Road, South Grafton, requesting that the Zoning Board of Appeals grant a special permit to allow extending a pre-existing non-conforming use with the addition of an accessory apartment or an in-law. Map 124, Lot 23. The board will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, June 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. via Zoom conference to consider this request and or to take whatever action is necessary, including the granting of a finding, special permit, variance, or other necessary relief allowed under the zoning bylaw. Copies of the application and plan are available for public inspection on the Town of Grafton website on the Zoning Board of Appeals 48 page. The June 10th, 2021 ZBA meeting may be accessed via either the following means: Grafton Government Cable Access, channel 192 on Charter or channel 34 on Verizon via Zoom, or dial in by location at the number listed. Zoning Board of Appeals, William McCusker, Chairman, Marianne DeRozier is Vice Chair, Kay Reed, Clerk, William Yeomans, member number 1, Brian Waller, member number 2, Peter Adams, alternate, and Matali Biswas, I hope I said that correctly, alternate, case number 874, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm really out of sorts here because I'm not doing things in the right order. The board would do really well, because we're going to reorganize at our next meeting, to think about a new chairman. I think that would probably be well served, and maybe I get someone who can do this in the right order. So the way we proceed is the clerk will read the petition. She's already done that. After the clerk's read the petitioner will have the floor, so you got to wait till after I'm done with this. And we'll have the opportunity to present their case. There's a 15-minute time limit for the petitioner. This time limit can be extended with the consent of the board. The petitioner shall present required information, and all comments should be specific. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor, we already went through how people can participate in this public hearing. Same thing goes for people in opposition. 15-minute time limit for people in opposition as well. After all evidence is presented, the board will enter into a discussion and hopefully come up with a decision. At any time during this hearing and prior to a decision being made by the board, the petitioner has the option to request that the petition be withdrawn without prejudice or continued at a later date, at which time further evidence in favor of the petition can be presented. The board may ask questions from time to time. However, all conversations should be directed through the chair, as we kind of already spoke to. The clerk's already read the petition. Does anyone of the sitting members of the board have a conflict or otherwise need to recuse themselves from this hearing? Okay, so hearing none, so the 5 sitting members will vote. So at this point, the petitioner has the floor.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. I do appreciate your consideration of my petition and my request. My request, as you may see in the materials, is specifically for an accessory, otherwise known as an in-law apartment, to my existing home in Grafton at 331 Providence Road. Our hope is to build a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom accessory apartment for my mother. My father passed away 2 years ago, and it is our hope to bring her into our home. She retired last year and has been living in our family home since that time. We do have a 1-year-old daughter who was born just after we moved here to Grafton. So she was born a resident of Grafton, and my mother is currently a caretaker. And so it would also give us the opportunity to have that mutually supportive relationship, both for us to care for my mother as she gets older, and also to have her to help with the care and the love and the time with our daughter as well. We have worked with an architect to assist us in building, or I shouldn't say not building, pardon me, excuse me, I have not built a thing. I want to make sure that's clear on the record, in designing our plans so that they comport with the requirements, or at least as we understand to be the requirements of the town as well.
Okay. At this point, I'm looking for the actual meeting materials. Are there any questions from the board while I'm trying to find what I need? Hang on, I can't see it. All right, so does anyone wish to, any questions from the board?
None at this time.
I've got one, Bill.
Yep, go ahead, Peter.
The existing house is 1,504 square feet and they want to put on 803. Is that correct? And I just lost the sound. I lost the sound.
Yeah, so Ms. Kennedy, did you answer that question?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so it's doubling the size of the house.
No, it's just
Tripling.
Adding about a half the size, yes. So it's 1,500 square feet now estimated, and it will add 800 square feet. So it'll be a total of roughly 2,400 square feet.
Now, is this in the water protection overlay district?
It is, yes.
And that only allows 50%? Or am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
I don't like bringing this up, by the way, but
All right, so,
The calculations are on the plot plan that was submitted on what the current impervious is and what the proposed is and what the amount of increase is, if anybody. If you guys
Okay.
want, I can put it up and share it.
Can you point that out, please? Where is it on the plot plan?
So if you look up at the top of the plot plan, it says proposed addition plot plan. And then it says zoning district to the right, right in the middle of it. It says existing impervious area, 3,606 square feet, 5.4%. And then it says proposed impervious area with the addition, 4,507 square feet, 6.8%.
okay. I mean, that's good information to have that addresses Peter's question. I guess I'm hung up on the cover letter. The cover letter says the addition will add 1,500 square feet to the existing home, which is 800 square feet. I think that's backwards,
I
right?
think that is, my apologies. That's
Okay.
my error. So yes,
Okay.
so it is the current, and again, I apologize for that. The addition will add 803 square feet to the existing 1,504 square feet of the current living space.
Okay.
doesn't the water protection overlay district only allow 50% of the current structure though?
No, Peter, it's really the impervious and even, it's even not a hard, you know, we can actually allow more than 50% with mitigating factors or something like that, I think is the wording. So, no, you know, it's the impervious area that matters. That's really what the concern. And that's why,
I know that's fine. I know that's
Yeah.
obvious. Okay, I'm fine.
Yep. All right. Any other questions from the board?
I have one, and I apologize if this has already been discussed, but can you please talk a little bit about what the existing non-conforming nature of the property is and how this addition is going to affect that non-conformity?
Yes, so our home, again, is a residential home. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. As we said, 1,500 square feet. It is zoned in the office. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought Katrina was saying something. It's zoned in the office light industrial district. And so it's a pre-existing non-conforming use because of the way it was zoned. My understanding in speaking with the town is that so the house, let me back up, the house was built in 1960 And my understanding in speaking with the town is that the zoning occurred in the 1980s. And so after the house was in place, it was zoned as office light industrial while after the time the house was built.
So it's just with respect to use then?
It's
The
with respect to use, I believe. And I know Katrina, when I had spoken with her as well, one of the other piece is if you look on the plot plan, the existing house, I think is the setback on if you're looking at it on the left side is about 8 feet. And I think that is also, and again, that was as purchased, and that's the current structure, but I believe that amount of space is also pre-existing non-conforming use.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I have no other.
it's an excellent question, and actually, it's an important point that I discussed with the town planner and the town zoning enforcement officer when this first came in, just to make sure we were on the same page as far as why it's in front of the ZBA. Typically, accessory use in-law apartments are handled by the planning board. But in this case, because it is a pre-existing non-conforming use, it has to come to the ZBA for an extension of that pre-existing non-conforming use. All right, so to that end, there's no other questions at this point from the board. I'll ask the questions that I normally ask to establish findings. Ms. Kennedy, you already answered the first question, which is when the structure was built. Then usually, because we're dealing with structures, we're asking about frontage and things like that, although I don't think any of that is actually relevant at this point. So I'm going to strike all of those. And really, it just comes down to the use. Oops. So all those go away. The current use is a residential home. You are living in the home now, right? It is a residential home that you're living
Yes,
in, right?
yes,
And it has been since it was built in 1960, correct?
that's my understanding, yes.
I think those two findings alone are sufficient to get us to the fact that this is a pre-existing non-conforming use. So then we get to discussing the impact on the neighborhood and things like that. So the current use is a residence. Current house is how many bedrooms, how many baths?
Current house is 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms.
And the proposal will make it how many and how many?
So it will add 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom. So it'll be a total of 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms.
Yep, okay. I think it's safe to say the neighborhood consists primarily of residential structures. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes,
The lot is in the water supply protection overlay district, but we'll get to that in a minute. The change will result for the water supply district. Where'd that go? I'm not gonna have to do that much. 3606, 4507, 901 square foot increase in impervious area. Where'd that go? All right. Great. Katrina, could you share the document that we got from the town planner with respect to conditions, and he actually had proposed some findings.
Yeah, bear with me one sec while I pull it up.
Thank you.
Bill, you're muted.
Yep, I just remembered that. Thank you. So what we're looking at here is a result of a request I made to the town planner. What I had asked the town planner was for typical conditions and general input, because as I said, this is something that is normally handled by the planning board. So these are conditions that they typically put on these accessory in-law apartments. Ms. Kennedy, had you seen these before now?
I
Or
have
this
not,
first-
no. This is the first
Okay.
time I'm reading it.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know if I should have sent them to her. I'm sorry. I guess I should have asked.
Yeah, I didn't think of it myself. But yeah, certainly wouldn't have heard. But essentially, what the conditions are saying, it's granted specifically to the applicant for the property at 331, and it does not run with the land. In other words, once you sell this home, this special permit will go away, and that's not necessarily the typical case with special permits. That's why this condition is put on there. And the intention here is that the addition you're putting on is to be occupied by your family members only. So you have a need, and you're adding this in-law apartment for your need for your family. If at some point it's vacated by your family members, you can't, rent it out to other people. You can't do, Airbnb or anything like that with it. So that's the intention of the second condition. The next one would be it's got to be recorded. I think that's fairly standard, and then submit a copy of the recording back to the ZBA. And then you agreed. I think we get into some boilerplate sort of thing. The special permit will lapse within a year if you don't actually act on it. In other words, start construction. I assume your intention is to start right away.
It is, yes.
Can we scroll to 6? Basically, you're agreeing to use the site as, a residence with an in-law apartment, and if you decide to change any of that use, you would need to come back to us essentially
Okay.
for such a change. And then the next one, Katrina. Yeah, okay. So he wants us to look at access and egress, off-street parking, things along those lines. I think just the nature of this lot and where it is, I don't think there's necessarily any issues with access or egress or off-street parking. I should be seeking input from neighbors, and we'll do that in a minute. But I think everything that's involved with some of the things that the town planner wants us to look at, I think we're in okay shape on, but I want to make sure the board sees these comments, and if anyone has any thoughts or further comments, please speak up. And as far as his findings, I think we have a set of findings that we've always been using, and I think that we'll just stick with the findings the way we typically do them at this point. Just because that's the way we've always been doing it. And, I'd rather not get into introducing other findings. So I'm going to ignore the rest of this mail, Katrina. It's the conditions that I think the board is agreeable to that we're going to want to put on this special permit. So where we're headed is we'll do our usual motion to grant a special permit subject to the following conditions, and we'll have these conditions here unless there's further discussion or anyone wants to change anything. So, any thoughts or further comments from the board?
Bill, I have something. Can
Yeah.
you explain again, and I may have missed it, I may have zoned out, why would we have a condition on the special permit that if Tracy's family, just what if, they move, why can they not sell this and let another owner use that space also with a family member to do the same thing she is? Can you explain that again?
Well, so we're not allowing them to have a two-family home here, right? It's intended to be an accessory in-law apartment. And the implication there is that it's a relative, and that's what the applicant has stated. If she sells it, and the new owners want to also put a family member, they can come and ask for the exact same thing, and we
Okay,
would
that's right.
probably provide the same conditions that.
So it has
Sure.
to be reapplied for. Yeah, I had that situation in Shrewsbury with a buyer. Okay. So a new owner could come in, still, she could use it, but they have to reapply for the same permit to be allowed.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
So I have a question. So it can't be transferred? It has to be applied for again?
Yeah, Brian, that's what they do, apparently. I'm just kind of going with what the planning board has done with these accessory apartments in other cases. And,
So
I think,
so the bylaw for the town actually states that an accessory apartment goes with the person who applied for the special permit. And if that person sells the house, that accessory use for that in-law apartment is gone, and the new owners have to apply for it to use it again for an accessory apartment, in-law apartment for an au pair or a family member.
Is this a Grafton thing or is this like a Massachusetts requirement? Is it like
Grafton.
Grafton?
It's Grafton. It's part of our
Must be other
bylaws.
towns as well. Okay. Yeah,
Probably,
okay.
but
Yeah.
that is one of Grafton's bylaws.
Okay. All right.
and to me, it makes sense at a high level, because if you didn't have those sorts of controls, then you're creating a two-family. And that's not the intention, that's not what's being asked for, and it's not the intention of granting it, right? If you want a
Right.
two-family, then come in and apply for a two-family and go through that process. But that's, a different.
Yeah, that
Different
makes
view.
sense. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or thoughts from the board? Okay, Katrina, do we have some other input from boards, I believe, correct?
Yep, so the Board of Health had no comment, and the
Okay.
fire department's only comment was that because of the new addition, they need to bring the entire house up to, they all have to have new smoke detectors. That was the only
Okay.
comment from Mike, and those were the only two departments that responded.
Any communication letters in favor or against from the public?
I got nothing in from the public.
Okay. I think you can stop sharing this now. And do we have any people that want to speak?
There is one attendee, Mark Wagener, but I don't know if he wants to talk or anything. I don't see anything in the chat, and I don't
Yep.
see anybody raising their hand.
Okay. And you're able to communicate with someone to know whether there's anyone on the phone who wants
Oh,
to
wait,
speak?
Mark just raised his hand.
Okay.
Oh, let me hit allow to talk. Go ahead, Mark, you should be able to talk. Mark, you need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Mark Wader. I'm their next door neighbor. They're great neighbors and I'm totally in favor. The property
Thank
used
you.
to be my grandfather's, and I'm glad the property looks fantastic and I'm 100% in favor.
Mark, can you just give me your address, please?
341 Providence Road in South Grafton, and also 335 Providence Road in South Grafton.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well, if I may say so.
Very welcome.
Okay, Katrina, any other input before I talk
Other-
about closing public hearing?
No other input from anybody, Bill?
Okay. All right, so at this time, any other questions or comments or thoughts from the board? And at this time, I'll close the hearing to public input. I'd entertain a motion Katrina, I can't find the legal notice. I'm sure I have it. Can you just display the legal notice so I can see it, and maybe we'll just do our motion to that?
Yep, bear with me one sec.
Yep.
Wrong legal notice. There you go.
Okay, and then I think we can say per Exhibit A, which is that land planning document that's got a Norman Hill stamp on it.
Okay.
We can call that Exhibit A, so it'll be per Exhibit A, and subject to the conditions. And I think, what was it, 6 conditions that Chris had sent us?
Yes.
It'll be subject to the conditions received from the planning department as presented during the meeting. So let's just quickly review findings. Structure built in 1960, current use is a residential home and has been since it was built in 1960. So based on those 2 findings, the house is pre-existing non-conforming use. The current use is a residence. Current home is 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. Proposed is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home, including accessory apartment. The neighborhood consists primarily of residential structures. So based on that, would be finding 3 through 5. The proposed use is not more detrimental to the neighborhood. Just making a note of the F3 through F5 here. All right, and then the lot is in the water supply protection overlay district, and the change will result in a 901 square foot increase in impervious area, which is less than the 50% allowed in the WSPOD. So there's no steps to safeguard. So that basically concludes the findings. And unless anyone else has anything else they want to add to the findings, so I would entertain a motion to that is essentially the legal notice. So grant a special permit to Tracy Kennedy, 331 Providence Road, South Grafton, to extend a pre-existing non-conforming use with the addition of an accessory apartment in-law as depicted in Exhibit A, subject to conditions, the following conditions. And it'll be those 6 that Chris has sent us.
Bill,
Yes.
I just have a question. Should a note be made, maybe I missed it, that a pre-existing non-conforming use is that it's a residential property in an office light industry?
Yeah, you know what? It really should be. That would be a 3rd finding at the top. We say
Correct.
The current use is a residential. Yeah, that's a good one, Bill. Thank you. Current use is residential home and has been since built. Residential use is not permitted in the OLI district. So it's really based on findings F1 through F3 that the house is a pre-existing non-conforming use. So then down here, F3 becomes F4, F5 becomes F6. Okay. All right, so excellent catch, Bill. Thank you.
And I'll make a motion to move based on the comments that you read prior to my question.
So
To
moved is
approve.
what you're saying.
So moved, yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Katrina, if you could just stop sharing that at this point so I can see everyone's faces. I don't know who to call on the vote. Any further discussion? So by roll call vote, Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. So the permit is granted, or the motion's passed. The permit will be granted subject to the 20-day appeal period. So what happens is our secretary needs to type up the decision. We need to get our way in there to sign it. It gets filed with the town clerk. There's a 20-day appeal period. At the end of the appeal period, you can pick up a certified copy, assuming no one has appealed it, and file that with the registry. And then per the conditions, bring a copy of that back to the ZBA so we have it. Any questions? You good to go with that?
Yes, this really just means so much. I didn't realize I would get emotional, but this really means a lot to my family. We've been talking about this for quite some time, and I really do appreciate your time and your consideration and for granting this permit.
You're welcome.
Glad we're able to help.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Tracy, I'll send you a copy of it once it's filed and let you know when it's ready, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Bye now.
Bye.
So I think I'm supposed to do a motion to end case number, whatever this was. Isn't that the next step here?
874.
Yeah, so I'd say motion to end case, I will entertain a motion to end case number 874.
So moved.
Somebody say second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none. Ms. DeRogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Waller,
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
Thank you again.
Case is ended.
Have a great evening.
Next order of business would be, I don't know if anyone's actually here for Elm Rock. Well, I'm going to do Prentice next.
Steve O'Connell's here. I think he's the only one who's going to be here from Elm Rock.
Yeah, I'm going to do Prentice next.
Okay.
So, I don't know, we'll start with Sotir maybe. You want to just give maybe a quick recap of where we're at and why we're here?
Good evening, everyone. I have with me present at the meeting Kate Oranchak, who is the landscape architect for the project. At our last meeting, the board had requested that they hire a peer reviewer to check the landscaping plan that was prepared and presented to the board. I believe Alice Webb was the peer reviewer. And my understanding is that Kate and Alice have worked together and they have reached an agreement on a plan that's acceptable to Alice. And we're hoping that with your blessing, we will have the plan approved this evening. Kate will make her presentation and go over the comments that we had received. With that, I'm going to let Kate give us the details.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I will share my screen if that's okay.
Can she do that, Katrina, or do you need to
Or
enable that?
it says disabled.
Hold on. I should be able to. All panelists, sorry. Okay, go ahead, Kate.
Can everybody see the drawings?
Yes.
So the comments that we got, this drawing represents the culmination of responding to Alice Webb's comments on the package that we submitted the last time we visited the ZBA. And I'll go through her memo and our response. Her first comment was there was no bar scale, so I added that. Good catch. And the second comment had to do with 2 oak trees, one in this little courtyard and one in this courtyard that she felt would get too large for that space. So we eliminated one and changed the tree species in the other for a smaller tree. She noted that there weren't enough shade trees in the parking lot, given the location of the trees that we had proposed. So we re-looked at that. 17 are required, and we now have 17, including 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh, I missed one somewhere, but there are 17. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wait a second, now I can't count them right. Anyway, there are 17. She also noted that, and I can go through them if you want me to specifically go through and count and identify where they all are. I'm happy to do that. I'll zoom in and do that. But for now, I'll go through the comments and then we can look more closely. She also suggested moving some junipers out of this corner. Because we are concerned about view into the parking lot, instead of eliminating them, we push them off to the edge so that we'd still have a little bit of a buffer from the neighborhood. And that is comment number 3. Comment number 4. She made a comment about the species of the shade tree in the parking lot. We had specified a pin oak, which has a branching habit that the lower branches tend to face downward. And although we chose that tree specifically for that purpose, hoping to add some screening, additional screening, we took the comment and changed the species from pin oak to swamp white oak. So that's been changed. She also suggested changing the white oak species to a fastigiate or upright narrow version. And that's because over time, the white pines lose their lower limbs. And so the screening effectiveness would be compromised as the trees mature. So we changed that as well. We added, see, that was comment number 5. Comment number 6 had to do with one of the conditions, a note regarding maintenance of the plant material for a period of establishment. And that note has been added to sheet L 1.2. That is comment number 6. Comment number 7 was, I'll go back to the plan, to add some more screening along this buffer area, taking into consideration not planting within existing tree canopies, but trying to make the screening as solid as possible. So we added some trees in the buffer area as well. And those were the comments, and that's how we responded to the comments.
Any questions from members of the board? Speak up, because I can't see the whole board in the view I've got right now. So if anyone has any comments, please just speak up.
I have a question, Bill.
Yep. Go ahead, Bill.
On the corner of Shrewsbury Street and Prentice, I see that there's one Dawn Redwood. There were previously 2. There were previously 3 on the earlier plan.
Yeah.
And I assume that you went to the one because of the size of the tree.
Right. Bill, thank you for pointing that out. You had mentioned in our previous meeting that you thought 3 in this location would be too many, and that the space wasn't large enough for this big tree. And so I eliminated 2 to keep 1 and let that be a showcase in and of itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, Bill? Or
I reviewed the original plan carefully. I reviewed the comments and the rationale behind the changes of the peer review, which I think, Bill, at your suggestion was a very good one. It's not that the first plan was flawed, but this plan is even better based on the input from the peer review. And I think it's commendable. Again, looking back to our early days of approving this, we had a few elbow fights over the landscape plan, and I think that Soter and his team have done as I like to call it, a yeoman job on this landscape plan.
thank you. I believe Alice Webb is with us tonight. As our peer review, anything you want to add to this, the comments? My understanding at this point is all of Alice Webb's comments have been addressed, and I think we probably are ready to go on this. Anything to add to that?
You're asking me, Alice?
Yeah, Alice. I think
Okay.
Alice, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Everything, I think she did a good job addressing the comments, and I think, the plan is very acceptable, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Kate, if you could maybe stop, actually, before you stop, I think we're going to need to do a motion to accept a landscape plan. I just need some identifying information on this plan, a date or a number or something.
Whoops, sorry. I hit the wrong button.
But that's okay. You just somehow give us something to identify what plan we're gonna vote on.
I'm trying to, okay, I'll just do it this way. Planting plan, sheet number L 1.1.
Is there a date on it?
Dated 5/24/21.
And Katrina, we have a copy of this, right? Do we have a copy of this
Yes, we
plan
do.
dated? Okay.
Yep. I have everything that she was just showing.
Bill, I have one additional question.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious on, and maybe directly to Soter, the existing well on the property, is it planned to capture that to provide some of the irrigation on the site?
So Tier, you may be muted. I can't see if you're talking or not.
He's muted, yeah.
Yes, we had previously discussed the existing wall that was going to be kept on site for the irrigation purposes, correct?
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, for identification, we don't want to focus just on L1. I think all three sheets comprise this plan. So it's really the, where did it go?
L 1.1, L 1.2, L 1.3.
Yeah. So the landscape plan by Catherine Ranchek, dated
yeah.
5/25. So it's landscape plan by Catherine Ranchek, dated 5/24/21, comprising three sheets, L 1.1 through L 3, right? L 1.1.3.
Correct.
Okay, 5/24/21. That's the important thing. We got that date down. So, any other comments or questions from the board or anyone else on the panel?
Just one on that well question. Does the Board of Health allow the wells to be reused? Has anybody asked?
I
That-
don't know.
That's a very good question, Peter.
I
I
know
I
they
don't
had a
think-
policy in the last, years ago that, if you went to town water, you had to do away with your existing well.
Yeah, I think that was a question, and that deserves to be looked at. I think that's a question of mixing well water into a possible feed into town-provided water, that they don't want the mix in. But I think a well can be used as a non-drinking source of water. But that's.
Well, we're not
that's a good
necessarily
question.
granting. We're not necessarily granting permission, or this plan doesn't say anything on it about that well, does it? Or did I miss that? Is that part of this plan, that this well exists and is going to be used for irrigation?
It's on the existing, I'm sorry, it's on the plans that were approved as part of the comprehensive permit. There is reference in those plans that the well is being proposed for use for irrigation purposes. And my understanding is that because it's an existing well, the use can be allowed for irrigation purposes, but we can double check with the Board of Health.
Okay, but with respect to tonight's topic, which is this landscape plan, was there? I don't think there's a reference to that well or it being used for irrigation on here, is there?
I don't think,
It says at top, right at the top of it.
Let me shrink this down.
Just to the left of the
Oh,
entrance.
yeah. I see
It
it.
says existing wells to be utilized for on-site irrigation.
yeah, that was the base plan. This is the base plan that we use for landscaping purposes. That note should also be on the comprehensive permit plans that were recorded with the Registry of Deeds.
Then, I'm comfortable with it being on this plan as well. If we've essentially approved something that can't be done, that's something, Sotir, you're going to have to address. You're going to need to make sure you can or can't do that. If that means you need to come back to us for a minor modification or something, we'll just have to do that. It's, at this point, it's, I think it's water under the bridge, as they say, or water in the well or out of the well. I don't know. Does that sound reasonable? Does anyone have an objection to moving forward with this plan with those words on it? So at this point, if there's no other questions, and again, I can't see everyone, so just speak up if there are. So I think what we want is just a motion to accept the Prentice Place landscape plan as prepared by Catherine Ranchek, dated 5/24/21, consisting of sheets L1.1 through L1.3.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? On a roll call vote, Ms. DeRosiers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. Waller,
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. So I think that's everything you need from us at this point, right, Mr. Papalillo?
That is correct, yes. And this
Right.
plan was the plan for which will allow me to go ahead and do the Conservation Commission requirements before I do any work on the site. The site has been cleared, but I need to do the landscaping work in the replication area and walls and things like that. So this approval grants me the ability to go ahead and do the next level of construction.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. If there's nothing else with respect to Prentice, we can move on to our next order of business, which is, I believe, Elm Rock, looking for a bond reduction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. Alice Webb, thank you for your assistance on this. We appreciate you jumping in.
Good night, Satir.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay, next up, Stephen O'Connell, can you hear us? I see a tile
Yes, I
there with
can.
your name on it.
Yep. No video tonight, Mr. Chairman, but I am here and I can hear you and I hope you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you. Okay, and I see Jeff Walsh from Graves Engineering. Jeff, you can hear us and can you speak, please?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent, we can hear you. Great.
Bill?
Yep.
Bill,
Yeah,
could I make just a quick disclosure?
yeah.
As you all know, my name's Peter Adams. I'm the one that I previously owned Elm Rock Estates. I sold this development to Eastland Partners over 2 years ago. I have no financial interest in this. And I haven't really talked to any of those partners in over 2 years. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to add, just to fill in case anyone's wondering, you know, Peter needed to leave the ZBA because of his involvement with this when it came to us. My understanding is that a year needed to transpire, I think, after his conclusion of this business before he could rejoin us, as I recall. And I think that's really what Peter's basically making clear to everyone at this point, is that, you know, his time is up, and that's why he was able to rejoin the ZBA. And you know, I think he's just clarifying for respect.
That's correct.
Yep. Okay, so to Elm Rock, I imagine, you know, we mostly want to hear from Jeff, but Steve, do you want to say anything before we start here?
Just that, you know, this is a bond reduction that really gets the remaining construction value really low, which indicates that, you know, we're at the end. All the units are sold, occupied, some real, you know, small I dotting and T crossing. We've got as-built plans and road acceptance plans completed. We didn't submit those yet because we just thought that would take additional time for Jeff to review. It might not allow us to meet, you know, this deadline for this reduction. But again, we're literally on the goal line, and we will be starting to work on project closeout aspects of of the permit. And I'm here with any questions, but I think Jeff can give some detail if the board would like.
Steve, is this going to be a publicly accepted road?
Yes, it will.
Okay. All right. Mr. Walsh, can you lead us through your memo and where we're at with this?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. For the record, this is Jeff Walsh of Graves Engineering. We've been involved with the ZBA through this the comprehensive permit process as well as construction phase of the project. Recently, we were asked to update the infrastructure construction cost estimate. And a few months ago, I think it was April, we had updated the erosion and stabilization estimate, or erosion control and stabilization estimate. They're two different surety amounts for two different purposes. Nevertheless, tonight, to speak to infrastructure, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the top course of asphalt went on the road earlier this year. Loam and seed has been going down earlier this year. And as pointed out by Steve O'Connell, they're on the home stretch. We went through about a week ago and quantified remaining work. Summarized that in a letter we issued yesterday, June 9th, to the ZBA. And to summarize, there is a few ancillary items, the bigger things being, as pointed out by Steve, as-built plans and acceptance plans. Handful of small items. Streetlights need to go in. That's one of the, not that it's a big item, but it's important for illuminating at night. Nevertheless, with a 20% contingency for inflation and administration, that comes to a total of $34,000 of work estimated to be remaining. And years ago, I was asked by the ZBA to provide in my cover letter my understanding of how the planning board calculates surety, because the subdivision rules and regs call for not reducing surety to less than 20% of the cost to construct the infrastructure associated with the roads and so forth. That calculation's on page 2. That comes to $350,000. So what I'm telling you is there's about 10 times the amount of surety that I'm recommending to be consistent with the subdivision rules and regs as I know it. And sure that more than enough surety to cover the $33,000 worth of work we estimated to be remaining. Quality of the work's been good. Communication with the development team's been good throughout construction. And here's our recommendation, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Mr. Walsh, what are we holding for surety right now?
I think it's a little over somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. Bear with me. We are updating an estimate from August 31st of 2020, and at that time, I'm sorry, I'd recommended $478,000. So it's coming down about $120,000, $128,000.
Okay. So let me just kind of pare it back a little bit of what you said. Your estimate of remaining work is $34,000, I think.
That is
correct? Yep.
That is correct.
And but regardless of the amount of work remaining, the planning board traditionally keeps 20% of the total cost as a surety, correct? And that would be $323,000.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And their policy may change from time to time, but this is my understanding as of going back to High Point. When we went through this exercise with High Point, we follow the same protocol since then.
Yep, understood. And when does that 323, when does that 20% get released?
My understanding is after road acceptance. You may want to confirm that with the town planner, but I'm not sure if it's, I've always understood it's once the subdivision's conveyed to the town, but that's just my understanding. I'd be concerned if maybe it's after town meeting vote, or possibly once the approving authority, in this case the ZBA, determines the project complete. I'm not 100% certain, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, understood. That's great, but this has been very good input. So I would be leaning towards lowering it to that 323 number if if the applicant objects and would like it lowered. I'm sure he would. We can after this meeting check with the planning department and make sure that we're still being consistent with their current policies. And we certainly could act at a subsequent meeting and lower it further if the planning department says no, we only keep 10% or whatever the new policy may be. So I'm okay with going down to the 20%. Other thoughts or comments from the board? Okay. Mr. O'Connell, you're basically okay with that?
Yeah, we kind of had this discussion, with Eastland today, kind of wondering the same thing. When do we get to zero? If the work is complete and we're working towards road acceptance at a town meeting, we reviewed the comprehensive permit very thoroughly, and a little bit silent on this issue. There's some references to the subdivision regulations about some things, but not everything. And then there are some references to the subdivision regulations that I actually can't find. That section of the subdivision reg doesn't seem to exist anymore, unless I'm missing it. But I don't think so. So we've been working together great all along, and we continue to be. So yeah, we I'd love to get it reduced even more, but we're happy with this request for now, and we'll come back real soon when we get some clarity on the project closeout process.
Great. Yeah,
I think-
I think that's the way to go at this point.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding quickly, Mr. Chairman, is, my review of the subdivision regs today was, once determination of completeness is made by the ZBA, acting in their capacity as the planning board under a 40B, they'd have 45 days to act on the request, and then if it's deemed complete, it'd be 45 days, to release the rest of the bond money. I guess under certain circumstances, it could be held for up to 18 months for ongoing road maintenance. The town would use that money for road maintenance if it's deemed complete, but then it's never petitioned to the town for acceptance, just so the residents, aren't left kind of holding the bag. But I don't think any of us think we're going to be in that situation with this project.
Yeah, so Mr. O'Connell, what you're saying makes sense, but I encourage you to work to get with the town planner and really the development team. We just kind of, while we're going through this with High Point, and in fact, there really was a real kind of snafu where this process started with the planning board, and due to some miscommunication between ZBA council and town council and others, it really never should have gone to the planning board and is kind of coming back to us. And, I think you really want to have a conversation with the Development Review Board, probably with Dan Hill as well, and just make sure that that all parties understand the process that you're about to embark on to get this closed out, so we don't have the same problems that we had with High Point. We don't want to waste your time. We don't want to send you to the wrong places. And I think we've learned a lot in the process, and you want to just make sure we're all on the same page here.
Yep, that's some solid advice, and we'll certainly take it, and we'll run with it. I get a lot of experience with road acceptances, in conventional manners, through the planning board. So yeah, we'll apply what we know, and we'll let you know. Thank you.
Great, Mr. Yeoman.
Bill? Yeah, I just have a question, Steve. Is it the intention of the developer to go before the October town meeting for road acceptance? And I have a question in my own mind whether that's typically the case. I think the annual town meeting is when road acceptance is sought, but it may be available to them also at the October town meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Yeomans, in my experience with road acceptances, the fall town meeting, depending on how the town designates that, is one of the most common town meetings where they will accept roads. It's very difficult to accept roads in a spring town meeting because of the short time span from the end of winter. So any sort of cleanup that has to be done is very difficult to do leading up to town meeting and a May town meeting when we still have snow on the ground sometimes in April. So yeah, we were in position to present this in October if if that's what the process will allow.
Well, that's a conversation for the development team, and see how we get through that process.
Mr. Chairman, could I speak on two issues, please?
Absolutely.
All right. One, the planning board, the ZBA's desire to adjust my dollar value. I have absolutely no problem with that, Mr. Chairman. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, it says, you can got a disclaimer. I understand that I can be trumped by the zoning board and they can make a decision whatsoever. But I'm comfortable with the dollar value of 323. I want you to know that. The second thing, with respect to top course placement of asphalt, that's also a discussion that probably should be had with the planning department. There is a discussion in the subdivision rules and regs at determination of completeness, somewhere in and around that section, with waiting 18 months. And my experience in Grafton over the years was the intention was to see the top course of pavement go through a winter freeze-thaw cycle, which of course won't have happened by October. Quite frankly, I'm not in a position to say it's a problem. It's not a problem. I at least want to bring it to everyone's attention that it's my experience in the past is it's been standard practice to go through a winter of freeze-thaw cycle with the top course. But I'll leave it at that. And As that determination of completeness process goes forward, I'm sure that issue can be discussed. And nevertheless, we can still look at everything else we look at completion, even if it's just waiting. Thank you.
That's excellent information. Thank you. And, yeah, I mean, again, that's where, working with the planning department and the development team, I think a lot of that stuff will be handled correctly, but it's good to get that in front of everybody as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? So then I think what we would want is a motion to reduce the, what is this, just a bond or a tri-party?
Just a bond.
Performance bond.
Just a bond? All right, so reduce the performance bond for Elm Rock Estates, Chapter 40B project to $323,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote again by roll call. Ms. DeRosiers?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Anything else, Steve?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. I was just going to say to Katrina that Chad will probably reach out about the memo that she usually prepares and has you sign, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
For
Understood.
their lender. Yep. But that is all. As always, pleasure working with you folks, and we'll see you real soon.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
Take care, Steve.
Okay, back to our document. I think the only other item on it is minutes. I haven't reviewed those minutes, and I don't want to dig them up and review them right now, so I'm going to table those unless somebody really objects for any reason. Anything else that I'm missing here? Any new cases, Katrina?
No, nothing's come in.
Okay.
May I ask a question
Yes,
regarding Fisherville Terrace?
sure.
I'm just
Fisherville.
curious.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm curious, Katrina, driven by there just recently. Have they filed to the point where they're allowing them to go forward to a pre-construction? What's the status of that?
We're waiting on the regulatory agreement to be reviewed and released by the state so Dan can review it.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly it's been into the state since January, and I will send out an email probably next week and follow up and check on this. Actually, I should have asked Steve because Steve's the engineer on it. Supposedly they submitted it to the state in January and they're waiting for it to come back. So
Okay,
until that
thank you.
gets approved and filed and Dan reviews it, we can't have a pre-construction meeting because that's the condition of the comprehensive permit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And there was a request. I mean, I had an email at some point where they wanted to have that meeting. So my guess is they're kind of chomping at the bit to get going. And of course, we've got the construction that the town/state is doing in Main Street as well. And I know they want to try to coordinate with that also. So I think there is some pressure to get going on that. And I'm sure they want to try and take advantage of this hot market, of course, as well. So, but okay, that's good information. Thank you, Katrina.
Welcome.
Anything else from anyone? Right. Well, my suspicion is next time we meet, we'll actually be meeting in the building. But then I'm hearing rumors of the legislature maybe extending this ability to meet remotely. So who knows? But I have a feeling next time we meet, we will be in the building. So I kind of look forward to that, and I kind of have mixed emotions because I do like the remote aspect as well. Perhaps if I have to go to the building, I won't be as forgetful as I was today, though. Who knows? I don't have anything else. So at this point, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? We have to do this on a roll call vote. Ms. DeRosiers?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.